You're having a good time on the couch with your friends. You're having a good time in the bed alone. You're having a good time watching TV. Let us ruin your day. Yay!
Welcome to Now It's Ruined, the podcast for people who hate enjoying things. I'm Kate Bridle.
And I'm Larkin Harrington.
And we hope that you enjoyed our beautiful theme song as sung by the one and only Miss Larkin Harrington. Improvised. I don't know. I'm going to try and get Larkin's partner, Keegan, to put some music under it. So it's also got instrumental, but it might be just a cappella for this first one. But I'm determined to put it at the beginning, regardless.
Pure derangement.
It enchants me. It's been in my head. I mean, like, I walk around my house being like, you're having a good time. In your bed, alone.
I'm glad I've cursed you.
So good. And the Cryptid Corner theme song, which you can check out if you are a $5 and up patron on Patreon. It is going to be at the beginning of our new bonus episode, which will drop at the same day as this episode.
Ew.
And it is our first bonus episode in what we hope will be a series where Larkin talks to me about cryptids, because I know nothing about cryptids and she knows a lot. And I really loved the first one. I didn't know which direction she was going to go with it. And it was fascinating and also really still on theme for us. So if you have the $5 to give us per month, please head over to patreon.com/nowitsruined and you can check it out. You can also pay a one-time fee to access it. If you don't have $5 or any dollars, that's okay. You can still follow us on Patreon and you will still get fun bonus content. We are releasing some more, as I said, today and over the next couple of weeks. And we will just continue to do that for patrons of all levels, regardless of whether you pay us or how much you pay us. And I briefly mentioned this on our last episode, but we do have an Instagram account now. It's kind of the only social media we have besides Patreon and YouTube. So go check that out as well. We are at Now It's Ruined. Very easy to find us. And that's really all the housekeeping I had. I promised that these would get shorter.
And you delivered, yeah.
Thank you so much. The only other thing that's not really housekeeping, but that I did just want to say is I started looking more into D.W. Griffith because we were thinking about doing a bonus episode about him. And I learned that we may have been, I don't even want to say we were too hard on him because he made like the most racist movie of all time. But apparently he did regret it, which I did not know. Anyway, we want to dive into it more in the bonus episode because I do think that it can lead to an interesting conversation around, do we care that he had regrets when he made such a damaging film when he was fully an adult and could have been aware of the damage that it was going to do? And, I think it could lead to an interesting conversation around also cancel culture and how quick we are to forgive people depending on how talented they are.
Or how much we like their product.
Right, exactly.
I have a feeling I'm not going to have much sympathy, but, I will listen. I will listen if someone wants to present it to me.
I'm not saying you should have sympathy either. Like I said, I don't know really that I give a shit that he was sorry about it. Still did it.
It's like you said earlier, you're like, Joe Rogan was sorry. And I was like, well, that's great, but I'm still going to fight him.
Yeah, we did find out also that Joe Rogan has apparently apologized for some of his misinformation. And your point about Joe Rogan last week wasn't even really about him. It was just about the fact that a lot of folks who hate wokeness love Joe Rogan.
Right.
And that's not really about against Joe Rogan. It's just saying a fact.
Just stating facts here.
Yeah. So we want to dive into that a little more on a bonus episode. So we're going to try and find someone else maybe to talk to us about that too, who's like experienced in film and has more perspective on like D.W. Griffith's contribution there. And then, we're going to see where that conversation goes. I think it'll be fun.
I think it'd be interesting.
So today, Larkin is going to be ruining gin and tonics for us.
And I'm glad. At first I was intimidated that Kate passed this one to me. As I researched it, I got more and more into it and more excited. So hopefully what I have for y'all today will not only ruin gin and tonics for you, but be educational and make you feel feelings.
I'm really excited to hear which direction you went because it is also broad. The topic.
It's super broad, which is why it was intimidating. And I narrowed it down to what I thought were like the key interesting points and also just the way I saw it as a story. So
that's great. We're not going to complete a discussion of colonialism in one episode. So.
no.
And it's going to come up a lot. So
Sure is. So we've got plenty of opportunity to just dive into it. So I love a good G&T. And
me too.
Yeah, I know you like them. They're not like your fave, right? But
they used to be my go-to. Palomas have just been taken over for the last couple years
right,
for me.
Yeah. Palomas all the way. They're usually my go-to, especially if I'm pressured and like I can't be bothered to think of anything else. I'm like, yeah, okay, yeah, gin and tonic. I know I like that. Everyone stop looking at me. Gin and tonic, which is one of the interesting things about the drink's history, simply how ubiquitous it is. It's one of the world's most popular long drinks, in fact. And what is even a long drink, you ask, as I finally ask myself after pretending to know for this whole time. And it's very, very simply an alcoholic beverage that is served in a large glass vessel or whatever with a mixer, as opposed to, a short drink, a shot, or a shooter.
I never knew that. The only
okay,
time
good.
I've heard...
I thought I was dumb.
No, the only time I've heard long drink is like in the context of like the Finnish long drink. And I thought that long drink was only that specific like Finnish thing.
Product.
So that's interesting to know. Yeah.
I knew about long drinks and it was like Long Island iced tea, you know, those things. But because I'm pretentious and want to be liked, I always pretend I'm like, oh yeah, long drink. I know what that is. You know,
because I'm a fucking poser with a need for validation. I just go along.
Constant validation. Always.
Me too.
So some people, like Kate and I, really enjoy gin itself. Like I like the flavor. However, a lot of people do not, due to its very strong, bitter, almost medicine-like taste. This is because gin is made with juniper berries. The original name is actually Genever, meaning juniper in Dutch. In fact, apparently, it can't even be legally classified as gin unless there's juniper involved. At least according to the Craft Gin Club UK, who I imagine take the subject very seriously.
Yes, I would trust them.
Juniper berries come from the juniper tree or shrub and actually aren't really berries at all, but fruit-like cones. They have a very strong flavor and smell and have been used historically to season gamey meats, medicinally as a diuretic, and to flavor spirits. As long as you have a grain-based neutral spirit with juniper as the main aromatic, you've got yourself some gin. But we're not even here to talk about juniper and not even really about gin. So let's just start at the very beginning of this saga with malaria.
Great.
Great. Awesome. Off to a good start. If we remember our high school biology classes, which I barely do, I remember mitochondria, powerhouse of the cell. That's about it. Everything else. But if we remember high school biology, we remember malaria. I remember being struck by how long a topic this was in class, but there was reason for that. Malaria is an infectious disease that has affected human beings across the globe for centuries, really from our very beginnings. And this is really fucking interesting, and our teachers failed us. But there is ancient testimony of this deadly disease dating back to the Mesopotamian cuneiform. The oldest Hindu scripture referred to it as, quote, the king of diseases, end quote. And it is mentioned in what is believed to be the oldest medical text in the world, the Nei Ching.
Wow.
Yeah. This Chinese medical text, which I want to dive more into and maybe do something about because it's interesting as fuck.
Yeah.
But this Chinese medical text is purported to be the end-all in internal medicine and is presented as a discussion between the emperor of the period, almost a man of myth, like a mythical person, and his physician. And it's dated 2697 to 2597 BC.
Wow.
I know. And in this text, the ailments brought on by malaria are explained by the curse of 3 different demons. Headaches, a demon with a hammer, chills, one with a vessel of water, and fever, a demon with a hot stove.
Makes sense.
Homer talks about it in the Iliad. Aristotle, Plato, Hippocrates. Antigens have been found in Egyptian remains. Some historians even argue that it played a part in the fall of Rome.
Wow. I had never heard that.
I know. I don't remember talking about any of this in high school.
No.
And I do remember, now talking about European history, but conveniently leaving out like all the unfortunate world fucking parts. Very glorified European history.
All those times that the Europeans really fucked shit up for everybody else. I remember going to college and finding out how much shit the Dutch and the Portuguese pulled. And I was like,
and I talk
the
about
Dutch?
them. Yeah. The Dutch? Well, I never talked about the Dutch.
I can't even remember how the Dutch came up. But my mom once said, I never warmed to the Dutch. And I was like, I've never heard this a day in my life, Mother. Like, what are you talking about?
Good Tessaism. Everything she says. God damn it.
And I guess she had like worked with them when she was working in museums and stuff, and just said that she was like, I didn't dislike them. They just weren't very,
and that's just so her
people.
Too,
and
so classy. I just never warmed to them.
I have never warmed to the Dutch. Yeah. It made me think of in Austin Powers when Michael Caine shows up as Austin Powers' dad, and he's like, there are two things I can't stand: people who are intolerant of other people's cultures and the Dutch.
This disease had an immense impact on European history and therefore the rest of the world. It is likely that malaria traveled from equatorial Africa along the Nile to the east and north. It was carried along even farther by colonists, the villains of this story. This is where you spit out your drink really dramatically and are like, what?
Colonizers? Never.
Never.
I'm
Larkin.
shocked.
I'm shocked and appalled. But we will come back to that, of course. A big culprit was also agriculture and large human settlements, where conditions were made just right for the conductor of this killer to cultivate and thrive. Think stagnant water.
Yeah, so the agrarian revolution.
Mm-hmm. It's a literal clusterfuck. The cause of malaria was misunderstood all the way into the 1800s. The reigning belief was that it was an airborne disease, which is found in the name itself, a contraction of the Italian malaria, or bad air, which was attributed to the stagnant air found around marshes or bogs, so I suppose it wasn't entirely off the mark. We now know that malaria is caused by one of 5 species of Plasmodium protozoa, the most dangerous being Plasmodium falciparum. These protozoa are, and we're going back to high school biology again, contracted by a bite from an Anopheles mosquito, specifically a female one. And where are mosquitoes born?
Standing water. I'm in Minnesota. I know that one.
I know that one. Symptoms include chills, extreme fever, muscle pain, severe weight loss, gastrointestinal and respiratory problems, seizure, and of course, death. It was estimated as recently as 2018 by the World Health Organization that there were as many as 228 million cases of malaria worldwide. The most affected regions being underdeveloped countries, of course. And nowhere has been hit as hard as India and especially sub-Saharan Africa. A testament to this long-suffered relationship between the region and this disease is that where it has historically thrived, so does the gene that causes sickle cell anemia. This inherited blood disorder is a natural deterrent to malaria, but only in those who inherit one of the genes for sickle cell. While people born with both genes are not likely to survive, those born with only one not only survive, but are protected against this deadly parasite. There is treatment, even a preventative treatment, and its discovery is shrouded in controversy and true serendipity, and it brings us to another special tree. And that would be the kinna tree, or cinchona. Now a very rare tree, as it is endangered. It is a subject of myth, legend, and mystery, and it changed the world. The first iteration was of that I didn't notice. I was like, legend and mystery, and it changed the course of history. And I was like, what the
We should endeavor to just make all of our scripts rhyme from this point.
Yeah, forward. Alliteration and rhymes. That's all it is. It's a long poem, long form, like Iliad style poem, and you have to sit through the whole thing.
Yeah, and we have to write it in 2 weeks every time.
Yep. Oh, yeah, exactly. So cinchona are a flowering family of trees native to the Andes, some of which contain a very particular compound in their bark. The compound is quinine, an alkaloid that turns out to be the treatment for malaria. Now, whichever origin story you believe regarding the discovery of quinine in the cinchona, the coincidence of it, the serendipity, it's impossible to ignore, especially for me. I'm sorry, the magical cure for the disease that has been handing us our ass since the Roman Empire just happens to be found in the bark of this specific tree in Peru, and we figured that out. Like, get out of my ass. Toot sweet.
It is crazy, yeah. What are the odds?
I think it's crazy. And I went in a deep mental spiral about it because not only does the Anopheles mosquito have to consume the parasite, the parasite only becomes reproductively viable when it's in the mosquito's system, especially its saliva glands. Fuck. And then and then is only reproduces that way, and then it gets into its true host, which is a human, and flourishes, which is crazy. Yeah. And then to have another species of tree that can combat it is just like, damn nature, you weird and scary. On top of that, the indigenous peoples of Peru wouldn't even have had to worry about it until Europeans made them worry about it when they showed up to conquer the so-called New World. There really is no evidence that malaria existed in the Americas before the conquistadors and other colonists and explorers brought it here, namely via the slave trade. But once it was here, the Andes served as a division of Peruvians regionally, one region being the coastal side and the other the rainforest. Both regions were exposed to the disease, and childhood exposure even meant partial immunity to people there. However, Andeans, who live at a much higher elevation, did not see any of this immunological exposure because the disease naturally didn't thrive that high up.
Oh.
And so the Spanish were surprised when outbreaks started occurring after forcing them to the coast to work on plantations, even going so far as to say that they were genetically weaker race.
Of course. That's what it's going to... We got to find ways to put people in categories that mean we're better than them.
It's just an obsession.
Yep. The hierarchy obsession. It is crazy.
And again, yeah, when they were forced to work on plantations and harvest during the height of mosquito breeding season. So harvest occurred during the months where mosquitoes were propagating like more densely. And of course, workers did not have any real access to their own medicine. We already instinctually know. Those who are truly owed any real credit in these histories rarely receive it. So naturally, the credit for the discovery of this magical medicine went to the wrong people. The story goes that the discovery of quinine as a cure took place in 1631 when a countess, the Countess of Chinchon, came down with all the telltale symptoms of malaria, and her husband, the Viceroy of Peru, demanded she be healed. And I always have to look up what the hell a viceroy is. Even after Bridgerton, it's so annoying. But they're annoying. Basically, a viceroy, in this circumstance, the Bridgerton brothers, a different type or whatever, is a ruler of a state or region that serves as a representative of the monarchy.
Oh, okay. Got it. I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Forgive me if you get into this and correct me. But so since it's not airborne, do they know how it traveled with the Spanish to South America? Is it some of them were infected and then the local mosquitoes drank their blood and then it started going around?
That's the leading theory. The leading theory is that, yes, especially kidnapped slaves who had it already in their blood were then brought to the quote-unquote New Indies because they had no idea where the fuck they were. So, yeah. The Viceroy of Peru, no one likes him, he sucks. He demands that someone fix his wife. And the Jesuits, the Catholic missionaries forced on the people there, delivered with a hot, drinkable concoction, one of the main ingredients of which being what was dubbed at the time Jesuit's bark, cardinal's bark, or sacred bark. And she was cured. The cure for malaria was found, and a Swedish taxonomist even named the tree after her, the genus Cinchona, dropping that first H of Chinchon. But there's an even older legend that a native man, lost in the Andes and thirsty due to a terrible fever, stumbled upon a still pool of water and drinks from it. He noticed it had a strange bitter taste, and he attributed it to the kinna tree at its edge. He was pleasantly surprised to find that his fever went away, and he shared this with his community, of course, and they went on to use kinna bark as a remedy for fever. Now, whoever this person was and whether or not they existed, it is true that the properties of kinnibark were known by at least the Quechua, the Cañari, and the Chimo peoples before the Spanish claimed the knowledge as their own.
Mm-hmm, of course. Yeah, just not for this one specific disease that they didn't frickin' have because, no one had come and invaded them and given it to them yet.
The bark was used generally to treat chills and fever, which would be recognized by the Jesuits as symptoms of malaria. Mm-hmm. So why not try it on that? And it worked. So it's called Jesuits' powder now. A miracle cure. And by the late 1600s, trade routes to Europe had been well secured because boy did they need it to keep up the good work of the empire. Malaria was a huge obstacle for any prospective early colonizers. Initial European attempts to install themselves along coastal Western Africa were repeatedly set back thanks to malaria and other killer fevers, killing them in multitudes. The looming threat even earned Sierra Leone and the surrounding regions the moniker White Man's Grave.
I like it.
If only it had truly stayed that way.
Yeah, the fever really tried to stop. Like, nature was like, guys, no, stop coming in here and trying to fuck up other people's stuff. Stay alive and stay in your lane. But we're like, no, we will all die if it means that we can be super paternalistic and murder a bunch of people.
Persevere to dominance. So these were Portuguese colonizers initially, at least in the early days before the British bullied their way onto the scene. The British were busy installing a trading monopoly on India and Southeast Asia called the East India Company. This was established to get in on that sweet, sweet East Indian spice trade. And this means a necessary British presence there, along with a bunch of new factories and plantations, and by the mid-1700s, its very own private army. Because you gotta have one of those to accomplish all the shitty things you've set out to do. As I mentioned before, malaria was also prevalent in India, where many of the population had at least some modicum of resistance to it, but the whiteys fell before it en masse. And while it was just a little trading company, it was a military force as well, as I said, complete with Indian soldiers, mostly forced, and of course its own navy. Because, of course, you have to secure all the goods you're shipping around, but they also used slave labor in all those new factories and plantations. And while you use a lot of local peoples as your source for the slave labor, you still need more, and you need soldiers and a military force to go kidnap more human beings from coastal West and Central Africa, and you have to fight the Portuguese and the Dutch to accomplish all this. And there is, more malaria there too.
Just go home. I just don't,
give it
why?
up.
There's like a meme that's like kind of ironic that the British did all that damage for spices and then don't use any of them in their cooking.
Oh my God. That's amazing. Oh my God, yes. Okay.
You fucked up the whole world just for these spices. But it's like, it's not about the spices, it's about the power that the spice trade.
Precisely.
And the money.
It was under the auspice of monopolizing trade to get in there and start stomping all over everybody.
I just don't get it. Just like, why? When you're encountering that much trouble, just take it as
take the L, monarchy.
Yes, the land does not want you.
Monarchy doesn't know how to take an L. That's against the rules of monarchy.
True.
Yeah. It is thought that more soldiers of the East Indian Company and the related armies met their demise fighting malaria than fighting the local resistance and the competition to acquire and protect their new conquests. So obviously, a medicine that combats this intrepid killer is going to be vital to continued expansion and to sustaining the colonies already set up. And the demand for quinine exploded. An irony for me in this, though, is that England was initially very skeptical of Jesuit powder. They were Protestant and didn't trust the Catholics extolling its curative properties.
England just looking at all the Catholics being like, mm-mm.
I'm not taking none of your Jesuit powder. What is it? Yeah. Roundup Jesuit? No. People died because they just refused to take it. So quinine wasn't isolated from cinchona bark until 1820 by French professors Pierre Pelletier and Joseph Caventou. A quote from a National Institute of Medicine article states that by the 1840s, British civilians and soldiers in India were using 700 tons of cinchona bark annually for quinine extracting, end quote.
Oh, so also deforestation now is part of it. Great.
I actually really tried to be cool here and do the math to try figure out an estimated equivalent of trees just to have a picture. And then I remembered I suck at math and immediately gave up. Maybe one of our listeners who's smart with this can do that for me. But it's a lot of fucking trees, right?
Yeah.
That's the point. I don't have to do fancy math. Maybe someone else will. So yeah, a lot of fucking trees are being decimated, right? And there were only so many to be harvested. So British and Dutch botanists were sent out on the hunt for cinchona that could be transplanted. Seeds and seedlings were collected and sent to India and Java. They hired Andeans to find them and bring back bark from the elusive fever tree. With the rush to procure this elixir, the desperate and greedy foreigners would have needed to rely on the native peoples to find the tree, as many would have no idea what to look for. And when they did, they would literally uproot them. It is no wonder that they are endangered today. And there wasn't huge success with the transplantation of the seedlings, except in the Dutch plantations in Java, where grafting of two sturdier species found better results. This, of course, created an explosion in trade rivalries, especially because these trees specifically produced the higher ratio of quinine as opposed to the others.
Oh, so now the Dutch kind of have a monopoly on the cure.
Bing bong. Yeah.
The Dutch.
The Dutch. I just never warmed to those fuckers.
If you're Dutch and listening to this, we love you. I've run around Amsterdam. It's beautiful. I love it out there.
And we love you.
The most beautiful airport I've ever seen in my life.
There are actually 4 distinct anti-malarial alkaloids found in cinchona bark, but because of the mass cultivation of these specific trees in Java, quinine became the most widely used because they're the ones being the most propagated. And at the expense of the enslaved people of Java, who continued to suffer because of disputes over this coveted resource, even into World War II, and it forever changed their way of life. Quinine actually wasn't really used as a preventative measure up until 1854. There really aren't any documented cases of it being used as a prophylactic, but it was officially used as a prophylactic by William Balfour Beike, an army physician and captain. He ordered that all of his men take a dose every day of their expedition, and no one died.
Yeah,
which was the first
like
one.
a forward thinker.
Yeah.
I mean, also probably a horrible person, but
also probably, sucked hard. But, and they were exploring the Niger River, and I imagine off to nothing good. But I thought about it and I was like, well, he is the physician of these men and he wanted to keep them all alive. So I guess good on you for that. But they probably all sucked. Anyway. This new prophylaxis, along with military might, dictated the ways of war and conquest from this point onward. The stuff still tasted miserable. In the early days, it was often mixed into wine or some strong beverage along with spices and other more palatable ingredients. But at the same time that quinine distribution was growing, so was a new product, tonics. These were simple fad drinks that were bubbly and had different properties added, but with no real medicinal or pharmacological effects. As these drinks grew in popularity, a new product appeared, tonic water. Essentially the same idea, but sweetened and with the new addition of quinine. We can thank Erasmus Bond, apparently.
Oh, love an Erasmus.
Another Erasmus.
God knows. You know I love an Erasmus.
I do. I was excited to bring him up.
But
not only Erasmus, but Erasmus Bond.
Oh, Bond. Erasmus Bond.
Yeah, right?
Quite have the same. I do feel like we should contextualize the Erasmus situation.
Please contextualize Erasmus.
So Larkin and I love to play Marry, Fuck, Kill. And so we just put a bunch of names in a bowl. We have just like little pieces of paper with a bunch of different names on them and we pick them out. Someone just put just Darwin in the bowl. And Larkin and I were in college for like anthropology and stuff at the time. So I had just learned about Erasmus Darwin, Charles Darwin's grandfather. And I pulled Darwin and my response was Erasmus or Charles. Because it made a difference to me and whether it's what I was going to do with them.
Hate response. Because she said it without hesitation. She just goes, Charles or Erasmus. Like, serious, like, this is a make it or break it for
information that I need. It was supposed to be Charles Darwin. I just like how much he hated, like, all those letters from him to his friend where he's just talking about how much he hates the boat. He's just like, I'm miserable and it's hot and I hate it here.
I hate it here and I want to go home. Fuck all these little animals.
This stupid island sucks. So warm and humid and I'm done. Like that negative energy.
It is.
It's a turn on.
Our vibe.
Yeah. Anyway. Erasmus Bond. We can thank him for the very first marketed tonic water in 1858. Then, I don't know if I should say Johann Jakob or Johann Jacob or Johann Jacob. Johann Jakob Schwepp. Oh, Schweppes.
In 1870 with his Indian quinine tonic. The product was immediately put to use by the British Army with the addition of lime, because why not treat scurvy while you're at it? But it was still quite bitter. So now we just have to convince masses of soldiers to drink the stuff, and what better way than alcohol? Right? I mean, it had been used before as a morale booster and even as protection against damaging mental side effects of combat.
We didn't know then what we know now.
Drink this.
Have this depressant.
Yeah, drink this and love us again, basically.
Yes. Drink this and be ready to go murder more people.
Forget. You'll be fine.
Yep.
And gin was a relatively easy and inexpensive alcohol at the time. And there were many small distilleries all across Great Britain, which is thought to be the culprit behind the gin craze that plagued impoverished communities into the early 1700s. I did look a little into the gin craze, which does have some controversial, like a lot of historians don't really side with that belief, but there was a almost American-like prohibition style time in Great Britain, and a bunch of small like illegal distilleries popped up providing really inexpensive gin. It was very prolific and especially affected impoverished peoples all the way, as I said, through to the early 1700s. So to get around the crappy taste and avoid, I imagine, any complaint from soldiers who were generally discouraged from drinking, officers would mix sugar, tonic water, and a shot of gin. Thus, the gin and tonic was born. But even though the Schweppes tonic had a high percentage of quinine per liter, you would still need to drink a lot of it, like more than you could really drink in a day. And even that much would barely work as a prophylaxis. So really, it was kind of a myth. And it was such a prolific and well-spread myth that Churchill was even believed to have said that the gin and tonic saved, quote, more Englishmen's lives and minds than all the doctors in the empire, end quote. So one of the very first global pharmaceuticals, quinine, cited by many to be one of the most powerful tools of imperialism of the British Empire, now a mixed drink we enjoy in dark bars. So like many sneaky remnants of the horrific journey to present-day Western world, it simply just remained. There are now synthetic anti-malarials used today, of course, namely hydroxychloroquine or chloroquine, which I was even prescribed when they thought I had lupus. Oh. And it ties in nicely as an extra ruin because if you remember, our current piece of shit fascist president pushed this drug as a cure for COVID. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, I don't. That was a news cycle time that I remember the bleach.
Oh, yeah, the bleach. Since then, the investigations have been halted due to safety concerns, which is all that needs to be said there. So not only were innumerable human beings killed and misused, cultures devastated, and unforgivable, unhealable damages done to communities and peoples across the globe, I can't also help but think about this little unassuming tree. I know. It makes me think of the giving tree.
Oh, God. Yeah, right?
It just gives and gives and gives. A biologist studying the genetic history of the cinchona, Natalie Canales, has found that overharvesting of the native species, which are richest in quinine, has ultimately reduced the tree's genetic ability to evolve. Her opinion is that our meddling may have caused them to evolve to contain less quinine. Where in 1805, there were approximately 25,000 native cinchona, as of 2020, there were 29 trees.
Oh my God, that's so low.
I know. And I want to end my part of it just with a quote that sums up my takeaway from all of this research and brings it all together for me. And it's from an article about the legacy of the Cinchona, and it's written by Nina El-Kadi. And she says how the tale of Cinchona is, quote, one more example of how indigenous knowledge has been co-opted by colonizers to sustain empires at the expense of both plants and people.
Oh, yeah.
And that was my womp womp.
That's a good womp womp. So basically, the gin and tonic was invented to help people murder and enslave more people.
Essentially, yeah. Like everything I read was like the quinine made it so Europe could continue its just march across the world. So not only are the people of the new Indies getting their whole lives uprooted and totally ruined and their cultures erased,
decimated, yeah,
their own very own medicine trees, which have huge cultural significance and spiritual significance to them, are being uprooted as well. And while that's happening, it's aiding and abetting the other atrocities that they're committing to continents. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, it's like this, they destroy this important symbolic and medicinal resource for the people in the Andes, and then take it to help them oppress people in India and Africa and everywhere else they want to go.
It feels like a double wound. Like,
yeah, they're committing atrocities to commit more atrocities to commit more atrocities.
And it just isn't a never-ending spiral. And it's like, Jesus fucking Christ. I will never enjoy a gin and tonic again.
Again, it's like the lengths that they go to just keep pulling some bullshit. And I'm like, now I just almost want to look up at least like how many people were murdered by like the British in India.
Seriously.
Just over a 40-year span from 1880 to 1920, which is considered to be the peak of British colonial rule in India, it's estimated that around 100 million people in India fell victim to policies that resulted in their deaths. Exploitative policies by the British killed 100 million people in 40 years in India. Good God. And gin and tonics helped.
And gin and tonics helped. Because if you think about it, if they didn't even necessarily act as a prophylactic all the time, at least you have this morale boosting drink that's we're gonna fight malaria.
Placebo. It does blow my mind too, just like when you were talking about the transplanting, and it's just, that is so much effort. Like you said, they would have relied on the native people to find these trees, and then probably rely on slave labor to transport them, to cut them down, to do all of these things. And again, just like using slaves to get more slaves, to oppress more people, it's just a disgusting, horrifying cycle.
It's horrifying. And that cycle creates, because they're creating more plantations in other places like Java.
Oh, right.
Which creates, again, the perfect circumstances to breed mosquitoes.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were going to say which creates more need for more slave labor, but
that
also
too.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And plantations decimated the land because it's a monoculture. Still have not repaired any of that.
Oh, I was going to ask, about Java, like, because I know you said it changed their whole country and history.
Like, it basically is similar to what happened in India, like architecture, the economy, the language, the culture. It all revolved around the bark of the cinchona. Like, there was one building that they said, to show off the wealth of the particular rulers in that area, was like mostly built from cinchona bark in the inside, which would have, cost so much, not only in money but in lives, to have that.
They're like, oh, but also we're not even going to use it to like try to cure people. We're just going to use it as a vanity flex of like, look how rich I am that I can have this resource that could save lives lining my house,
lining the walls of my home. Or,
fucking white people, man.
I can't.
Fucking white people. We are the worst.
We're the worst.
Go to a country. Oh, they have a disease that kills us all. Just back out. Just back out of that country. Oh, also, there are other people there who we have to fight, who want this area. Okay,
who want to live
back
there.
out, back off. Let them live in the fever area. And then also, of course, there are like locals who are resisting us being there. Yeah, maybe that's a sign that you shouldn't be there.
You shouldn't fucking be there.
You're in the wrong fucking place. Get out.
Go home.
And then they're like, we found a cure, but it's way over in South America, and we got to get it all back way over here across the whole ocean. Okay, maybe we just call it a loss. Maybe we just take the L.
No.
Nope. We got to do anything to keep oppressing people. It's ruined.
It's ruined. I know. And I just had a lovely night the other night where I had a new drink shown to me. It was the bee's knees. And it's...
Oh, I love a bee's knees.
Yeah. And I never knew about it. And I enjoyed like 2 of them. And I was just having a great time. And then sitting there, I was like, I'm about to write about this. And I'm going to be so sad. I'm going to be so guilty. And I'm going to just generations of white guilt upon my shoulders as I read and write this.
We'll dive more into fun colonialist atrocities when we do our full-length hammocks episode one of these days. But they're all different. That's
yeah. That's, I mean, and I was also not as concerned about touching on everything because I know that we will talk about this ad nauseum. So
yeah.
And
and I love that it went in like an environmental direction too, because I didn't even think about that.
My little heart can't take it.
Well, definitely. It's like, it's not even just gin and tonics for me. It's like gin or tonic.
And or tonic.
Mixed drinks. And again, we're not saying don't drink gin and tonic.
I'm going to keep drinking them.
Just think about the past, the colonialist past when you do.
Exactly. And it just occurred to me that this show, we're going to have such a great opportunity to just remind people. And I think that's why I ended it the way I did, is because we can wallow in our white guilt and feel shitty and drink a gin and tonic and be sad about it. But it could just be a time to hold space and just go, I'm going to remember the Quechua people. I'm going to remember the cinchona tree. I'm going to remember all of the people stolen and murdered and harmed because of this, and just give them a moment in your mind. And maybe that can be just, remembering them.
I love that. Well, it's ruined.
And it's ruined.
So let's do our Patreon shout out.
Oh yeah.
So shout out and massive thank you to Dangerous Daydreams for joining our Patreon as a paid patron. We appreciate you so much.
And what a cool name.
Yes, very mysterious.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
We appreciate you. Again, if you want to follow us on Patreon, whether paid or unpaid, go to patreon.com/nowitsruined. If you are one of our paid members, you're going to get more bonus content. If you are a $5 and up member, you get a free bonus episode every month. Well, not free, I guess, because you're paying $5 a month. You get a whole full-length bonus episode every month. So, as I said today, the day that this drops, we will have put out the Cryptid Corner, which is all about child stealing cryptids in particular, and is pretty creepy. So go check that out. Follow us on Instagram, follow us on YouTube, like, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, tell your enemies, and we will see you next time.